Ethan, this mission of yours is gonna cost you dearly.
Hey, have you heard that Tom Cruise does his own stunts? It may have seemed like an impossible mission back in 1996 to revive an old TV show and turn it into a mega successful 2-decade spanning film franchise. But that's exactly what happened. And before the upcoming 7th installment hits theaters, let's go on a quick mission that is very possible as we tell you everything you need to know before you go see Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Your life will always matter more to me than my own.
Let's take a deep breath like we just narrowly escaped death for the umpteenth time and get on with it. Let's go back to the film that started it all, Mission Impossible. Kicking it all off was one of 2 big films for Tom Cruise in 1996, with the other being Jerry Maguire. So in other words, I think it's safe to say that year really showed him the money.
Show me the money!
Anyway, Mission Impossible is a continuation of both the original television series created in 1966 and the revived sequel series which began in 1988. Loving the double numbers there. With the movie set 6 years after the events of the latter. Tom stars as a government operative, Ethan Hunt, who recruits a small team to help him prove his innocence after he becomes a prime suspect in the murder of his mentor. Of course, this movie delivered one of the most memorable scenes/images of 90s action flicks. I'm sure you all remember where you were when Ethan drops and hovers inches from the ground. As it turns out, Tommy put coins in his shoes for balance and to keep his head from hitting the floor, which is a great life hack if you plan to be a future spy. And fun fact, this is actually the only film in the franchise where Ethan Hunt doesn't fire a gun, nor are there any shootouts or gunfights at all. Yes, more of that, please. Up next is dun 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 Mission Impossible 2. Sorry, I can't help myself. Greatest theme song ever. Now, this installment may hold the lowest score on the tomato meter as the only rotten movie of the bunch, but I will say it was the highest grossing movie of the year 2000. And as our friends in Wu-Tang say, cash rules everything around me. Sorry, I'm in a singing mode right now. Now, in this one, Ethan and team joins forces with a professional thief played by Thandie Newton as they try to track down a genetically modified disease being held by a rogue agent. And while Sir Anthony Hopkins making an uncredited cameo appearance may ring a bell from number 2, it's really Tom Cruise's entrance scene that is this one's major calling card. It features him free solo climbing at Dead Horse Point State Park in Utah. Tom was wearing a harness with a thin wire and there was no safety net. So I guess it's pretty impressive. Moving on to Mission Impossible 3. Number 3 in the MI film series was directed by J.J. Abrams in his directorial debut. And yes, lots of lens flares. Tom Cruise called and offered J.J. the job after Tom binged the first 2 seasons of Abrams' popular show Alias. Note to self, pick up unknown calls. Now in this film, Ethan Hunt is retired from active duty and training new recruits, but he's forced to go up against a ruthless arms dealer played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is threatening Hunt and those that he loves. And speaking of Hoffman, Mission Impossible 3 is one of the strongest overall casts that we've seen in the franchise, with names like Michelle Monaghan, Billy Crudup, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, Kerry Russell, Maggie Q, and Lawrence Fishburne joining in on the fun. Now, unlike number 2, this one performed worse at the box office, but better with critics. Geez, I guess you could say pleasing people's an impossible mission. Either way, the mission was already being set for number 4. Onward to Ghost Protocol, which finds Ethan Hunt's employers, the Impossible Missions Force, shut down after being publicly implicated in a bombing of the Kremlin. So Ethan and his team have to go without resources or backup to try and clear their names. This movie, the first of what has been 3 straight certified fresh installments, includes Paula Patton in a supporting role. It also includes the first involvement of Christopher McQuarrie, who did an uncredited rewrite of the script and would go on to direct at least 4 movies in this series. But let's be honest, at this point, we pretty much associate Mission Impossible movies with crazy Tom Cruise stunts, and for this one, it was him climbing up the side of the tallest building in the world. No big deal.
You gotta be kidding me.
Okay, my friends, numero 5, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This time, Ethan Hunt and his team are on the run from the CIA and find themselves in a war against an international black ops terrorist organization composed of rogue agents from all over the world. The film was written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, his first of at least 4 Mission Impossible films. He had previously directed Cruise in Jack Reacher in 2012, and get this, he also wrote and produced Top Gun Maverick in 2022. I mean, talk about a power couple. Tying this one to a crazy stunt for your memory banks would have to be Tom Cruise performing Death death-defying maneuvers with a real flying Airbus at 5,000 feet in the air. I mean, what? Okay, now that we've survived all of those, let's talk about the Henry Cavill one. 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout is a certified fresh 97% on the tomato meter, making it the highest rated film in the franchise at the time of this recording. This time, Ethan and his team joined forces with CIA assassin August Walker to try and prevent an epic disaster. Unfortunately, August, played by the Henry Cavill, isn't who he really appears to be, and that leads to one hell of a climactic chopper chase between the two stars. This sequence took 6 weeks to shoot, and it happened over mountainous terrain on the South Island of New Zealand. One of the film's producers said it took 2 years to plan and claims that it was even more extreme than crews hanging onto the side of the flying plane in Rogue Nation. And you gotta think to yourself, how are they gonna one-up themselves for number 7? Can't wait to find out. Oh, wait, I'm the one telling you. Okay, here we go. So this, of course, leads us to the 7th mission in the Mission Impossible film series, Dead Reckoning Part 1. But what exactly is a Dead Reckoning? Well, based on what we know, it's Ethan Hunt's most dangerous mission yet, and that, I gotta say, is seriously saying something. I mean, have you been paying attention the last couple minutes? More specifically, it means that Agent Hunt and friends will have to track down a very dangerous weapon that threatens humanity before the bad guys get it. So I guess this is their most dangerous mission yet, and it kind of sounds like a Fast and Furious movie. On top of that, we know that some so-called dark forces from Ethan's past will also be involved, making his life even more difficult and requiring even more crazy stunts. In fact, you'll be excited to hear that this Mission Impossible film has one of the most aggressive stunts in cinematic history. Tom does a motorcycle cliff jump into a base jump in Norway. And in order to pull this off, T-Man went through a year of advanced skydiving training, base training, control canopy training, and motocross training just to pull this off.
Pretty much the biggest stunt in cinema history. Tom Cruise just rode a motorcycle off a cliff 6 times today.
And of course, in typical Tom and Christopher McQuarrie fashion, they love to take audiences along for the ride. And Christopher actually admitted that the camera they needed to shoot this thing didn't even exist until a couple years ago. Needless to say, it sounds like they truly did one-up themselves, so much so that McQuarrie said the only thing that scared him more about this stunt is what they have planned for Mission 8. Fresh and familiar faces. When it comes to who will be playing out this story on the big screen, joining Tommy as returning stars are Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and Rebecca Ferguson. Now, when it comes to new faces joining the fray, we're gonna meet Haley Atwell's Grace character, whom Atwell described as having, quote, somewhat ambiguous loyalties, which, come on, that sounds pretty interesting. We're also gonna meet a powerful terrorist and the film's main villain, Gabriel, played by Esai Morales, who was cast after Nicholas Hoult left due to scheduling conflicts. We're also going to see Vanessa Kirby as a black market arms dealer known as White Widow, and the always awesome Shea Wiggum as an enforcer who's tracking Ethan. Don't mess with Eli from Boardwalk Empire. So, what about Dead Reckoning Part 2? Well, friends, based on the film's title, you've probably figured out by now that there will be more Dead Reckonings to come. Now, while we know that Part 1 will end in a cliffhanger, probably, I mean, literally, we can't tell you much of what's going to happen in Part 2, but we do know that it has already been filmed and is due out around the same time next year. Tom Cruise is officially the unofficial king of the summer box office. And just to give you the time to properly grieve, it has been reported that these 2 Dead Reckonings will serve, sadly, as a send-off for Ethan Hunt. I mean, what? Come on, Tom. Take a cue from the Fast and Furious franchise and let's just keep this thing going. Anyways, friends, that's everything you need to know before you go see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 in theaters July 12th. And I think this goes without saying, but definitely check it out in IMAX if you can. My name is Naz Perez. Thanks for watching, and be sure to rate and review this film at RottenTomatoes.com.